Hi, Plinkin Preacher here. This is going to be my last video that I'm going to post on YouTube. If you've watched any of my recent videos, you know what my reasoning for that is. I'm going to be moving everything over to Rumble. In fact, it's already all there. And I'm just going to be exclusively using Rumble going forward. So this will be the last one. If you are watching on YouTube and you like my channel, my content, I'd encourage you to go over to Rumble. I'll put the link in the description and follow me there. And all my future videos will be there on Rumble, and I'm eventually gonna do away with the YouTube, mainly just because of their intrusiveness in people's lives. And I know it's a big deal, you know, a lot of subscribers on YouTube, but this just I'm gonna do a video today on this High Point 995. So if you watched any of my recent videos, you might have seen this hanging on the wall over here in the background. And this is kind of an interesting firearm. My kids gave it to me for Father's Day, I don't know, 10 years ago maybe. And at that time, I think they paid like $235 for it. It is a 9mm carbine. It's kind of clunky. It's kind of ugly, but it's inexpensive. And you know what? It works. I've never had a failure with this. Not only does it work, but it's fairly accurate. I've never put this on paper. I probably will once the range opens up and I can get out there and try it. I do have a red dot, not a red dot, but a reflex sight on here. It's a Browning, works pretty well. I took the stock sights off because they're quite long and you couldn't get, I'd have to put the red dot way out here, and I just took them off front and back, and I'm just using the red dot. So this is not a self-defense weapon. It's just for plinking, for fun, and it's a ball to shoot this. It is a little bit more expensive than the 22, obviously, because it's a 9mm, but I reload, so I have no qualms with shooting 50 to 100 rounds at a time and just having a ball with this. With this and a steel target, I can hit a 6-inch steel target at 50 yards every shot all day long. It does that fine. Now there's a guy on Rumble called Hootie Hoo. If you haven't checked out Hootie Hoo, I encourage you to do that. I'll put the link in the description for that too. And he's taken he's got one like this, but he's got a scope on his. And he's taken his out and he's fired it 100 yards to see what kind of a group it would get. And I was amazed. He's got a group at 100 yards from a 9mm carbine, a cheap carbine that's about the size of your hand. That's pretty good for a 9mm. I mean, it's not minute of angle or anything like that, but it's pretty good for a 9mm carbine at this price point. You can pay a lot more for carbines. You can get a Beretta, or now everybody's making them. Ruger's making them. Smith & Wesson is making them. You know, it's just they're really becoming popular and common. The thing about the High Point is that it is inexpensive, but it is functional. Another thing you might want to check out is do a search sometime on High Point in general, High Point torture tests. And there are some amazing torture tests where people took High Point firearms, jammed the barrels full of mud and rocks and even concrete in one place to try to get the gun to blow up. And it's amazing how much these guns will take. They're made in America. They're made like a brick. They kind of look like a brick. They're well made. I mean, they're made out of cheap materials. The stock is plastic. I wouldn't say polymer because this Ruger Mini 14 has a polymer stock, but the difference between this and this is like a toy, plastic like a toy. This is polymer. This is, you know, I'd rather have wood, but this is the way I got this gun, so I'm happy with that. But the plastic on here it's like a toy, and the metal. It's just sheet metal, bent. The receiver, it does have a steel barrel, obviously. The Picatinny rails are plastic. They're not steel. But you know what? I've taken this apart once in the 10 years I've had it. Now I'm going to demonstrate how to take it apart here in a moment. And put it back together. And even though it all comes apart and this sight comes off with the rail and everything in the action, put it back together and it's still spot on. So I don't know, for a cheap firearm, it works pretty well. And I added this little forward grip to it, makes it kind of fun. It folds up, of course, and gives you something to hang on to. The charging handle, safety, everything's made out of tin, just out of sheet metal. So there's nothing fancy about any of it. It does not come apart like if you had a 9mm AR9, I guess they call them. They come apart quite easily and typically like any other AR. This doesn't. There's some tricks to taking this apart, and I'll show that in a minute. I put a sling on it. I don't know why, but I did. And also I bought these little clips that you can put a magazine in, carry magazine on the side of, if I can get it to snap in there. Well, maybe I can. Maybe I'm putting it in backwards. There. And they just snap on the side. You can have loaded two, one on each side, loaded clip, magazine. I'm sorry, I called it a clip. It's not a clip, it's a magazine. And the High Point only makes 10 round magazines. That's it. You get a 10 round magazine with this, that's all they make. Well, I shouldn't say that. I think now they're making 20 round magazines. But instead of being double stack, which there's plenty of room in this big fat grip to do a double stack magazine, but everything's single stack, and they have an extended magazine. Prior to High Point making those, you had to go to this company called Red Ball, the only one that High Point would accept or recommend, and these are 22 round. So you put, these are not loaded and the gun is not loaded, so you put these in here, if I can get it in there, and it looks kind of dorky, but you know what? Even though it's ugly, it works. And like I said, it's very reliable and fairly accurate for what it is. So I'm going to show you how to take it down, how to take it apart. It's kind of a process, and it's been 5 years at least, maybe 6 or 7 years since I've taken this apart, and I've shot it a lot. So my guess is it's going to be absolutely filthy inside. I'd be surprised if it isn't. And but still, it functions. Dirty makes no difference. This would be the second time ever I've cleaned it in 10 years. And I'm not going to clean it on camera, but I'll show you how. So to take this apart, you've got to take the charging handle off. And by the way, if you get one of these, you might want to put some Loctite on that because it tends to want to loosen up. It's just, I don't know what this is, 5/16 wrench. You can put a socket on there too. It does have pretty long threads on it. So even though it loosens up, it's not going to fall out till it gets really loose. So there's the charging handle. Then on either side, High Point gives you this little tool. See those little horns on there? Well, they go on the takedown pins. These are the takedown pins right here, one on each side. And if you can see it, there's a little clip that holds those on, this little clip. And you just put this tool in the pivot hole and the hole on the side, like that. And you rotate that clip, and that moves it out of the way. It helps to press on the pin from the back, too. That one came out kind of hard. But you just rotate them, if I can do it. And you can see those are rotated now so that the pins will pop out. Then you pull the pins out from the other side. Takedown pins. So that takes care of those. Got your charging handle, your takedown pins. The next thing you do is you pull off this front part of the handguard here. And in order to do that, there's a little lever right here you have to lift up. It lifts hard. Just flip that up like that. See that? And once that's out, then this front guard comes off It does come off, but it comes off hard, as I said. There we go. That comes off like that, just plastic, nothing special about it. Now on the bottom, again, I said this is elaborate. There's this clip right here that has to come out. And that sometimes you might have to use a little screwdriver action on too. Once you get that out, I almost got it out. There. See how easy that was? All right, that clip has to come off. Once that comes out, then the action lifts right out like that. I'm sorry, that's the receiver, the shroud over the receiver. And of course you see the Picatinny rail, plastic Picatinny rail, the sight all comes off with it. All right. Now, to get this, the action, the bolt, all that should lift right out of here. Lift up like that. And pull it. I just dropped something on the floor. And there's your action. And if you can see that thing is absolutely filthy. It's just, my hands are going to turn black. I can see that. So that's out. Now here, there's another little clip. This is what holds the striker and the recoil spring, so forth, in there. So we got to take that out. You notice it's got a little slot there, and you got to slide this down so it fits into that larger hole. And again, screwdriver's handy for this. If you want to keep height on your fingers, that is. So once you get that off, then should be able to. Now there's a recoil spring in here and a guide rod. And so this, I gotta take this thing off too. This little, that's just, looks like that's, again, plastic. I think that just holds the barrel in place. So what we have to do to get this out, we have to be careful because that recoil spring can shoot across the room. And I believe I've had it do that before. So you want to be careful with that. You just got to slide this backwards a little bit. Like that. Then lift this off. Slide it back, lift this up. And now you have to be real careful when you get this up that you just release the pressure on it very gradually, so that when you get it off, it'll slide off the front of the barrel, and there's your recoil spring and guide rod. Pretty long spring. So you gotta, when you're putting that back together, that can shoot out when you're putting it back together too, so you have to be careful when you do that. So the next thing is we want to get the striker and firing pin out of the bolt here. There's this little retaining button here, I guess. I don't know what you call it, but that just slides out the back. And then if you tip this, the striker spring and the firing pin will come out. Now you can go further and take the trigger action apart. I'm not going to do that. It's a little bit too complicated for someone like me who is mechanically challenged, but you can, and there are instructions. You can find them on Rumble or wherever. You can find instructions on how to do that. But that's basically stripped it down pretty well, except the trigger assembly, and it can be cleaned up, and I need to clean it up before I put it back together. Now the thing is about this High Point 995, as I was taking it apart and looking at it, thinking about it, it's ugly. But you know what? When we think about that in our lives, so forth, And sometimes we look at the outside of a person and we make a judgment of them based upon that. But God tells us in his word that man looks on the outside, but God looks on the heart. So if you look on the outside of this, it's all taken apart now. If you look on the outside of this, it's kind of ugly, and it looks like it's just cheap plastic, sheet metal junk. But you know what? On the inside, it's all American made. It's got a 100% lifetime warranty that transfers to whoever owns it. If you sell it to someone, they have the warranty on it. And it functions. So the heart of this is effective. It's reliable. It functions well. It fires well. It always cycles. It has a heart that's much better than its outer looks. And that's, of course, what God is saying to us. We tend to look at people on the outside and say, well, make a judgment of them. But what we need to do is know what's in their heart, just like what's in the heart of this. Now, one thing I didn't mention about the High Point carbine is they make this in a whole bunch of calibers. You can get this in 380, 9 millimeter, 40 caliber, 10 millimeter, 45 ACP, and they're even now building these in a 30 super carry. So you can get a carbine from High Point in any of those calibers. And really, for the price of a Smith & Wesson or a Ruger, you can get two of these for the same price and have a ball. If you're, obviously, you might not want to use this as a self-defense weapon, but just to play with and have fun and plink with, it's excellent. Anyway, I'm the Plinking Preacher, and I appreciate you watching. If you're not following me on Rumble, I encourage you to get on there and follow me there. I would appreciate that very much. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't bother. Anyway, remember, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Now I got to put this mess back together.